The history of supercontinents on Earth remains relatively mysterious, especially the further back in time we go. But a new study that was just published in the journal Geology provides new insight into one of the very first supercontinents on Earth. This first supercontinent, called Nuna or Columbia, is estimated to have formed around 1.6 to 1.8 billion years ago. But the reason that I put quotation marks around the word first is because even older supercontinents have been hypothesized. But the ones before this are a bit controversial, given that we have very few rocks from this long ago and thus very little data to support these hypotheses. And also, before around 2.5 billion years ago, it's thought that plate tectonics hadn't even began on a global scale yet. So how did these supercontinents form? Well, we don't exactly know. And with all that said, Nuna is often referred to as the first supercontinent because it's the oldest one that we have more robust data on. And this new study provides a detailed look into how and when Nuna broke up. But before we jump into all the cool methods and findings of this study, why should we care about how and when Nuna broke up? Well, supercontinents and just global tectonic activity in general heavily affect global climate, environmental conditions, landscapes, ocean circulation, volcanic activity, nutrient cycling, even biological evolution. For example, Nuna's formation likely drove global change during the Mesoproterozoic or Boring Billion between around 1.8 to 1.2 billion years ago that might have been key for certain biological developments like eukaryote evolution, animal evolution, the evolution of multicellularity, and more. Okay, so we care. But what exactly did this new study do and find? I mean, how do we even study ancient supercontinents? Well, the authors of this study used paleomagnetism, in other words, ancient magnetic signatures preserved in rocks, which I'll get to in a second, to figure out how different cratons or ancient continents moved relative to each other over time. But backing up to this ancient magnetic signatures of rocks thing, what do these signatures actually represent and how do they tell us about ancient continent positions? I didn't actually know a lot about paleomagnetism before I looked into it to cover this particular study because I'd always heard it and I had understood the very, very bare minimum that it was a method used to do this kind of thing, but I never knew how it exactly worked. But you guys, this is so cool. So paleomagnetism is the study of the recorded direction of Earth's magnetic field in ancient rocks. Essentially, when rocks form, specifically certain types of igneous and sedimentary rocks, they can lock in the direction of Earth's magnetic field at the time they solidify, like mini compass needles. And this is just because as molten rock cools and crystallizes, the magnetic minerals that are in that magma or lava align themselves with Earth's magnetic field. And I didn't know this next part, but apparently this can happen in sedimentary rocks too. When tiny magnetic mineral grains settle in water, they align themselves with that magnetic field. And then as they accumulate on the sea floor or lake floor, whatever they're settling in, they will eventually get compacted and cemented together and form a sedimentary rock. And we can use those too to study Earth's ancient magnetic field. Of course, there's tons of methods that go into correcting for other factors that might have influenced the direction of these grains and take those out of the equation. But in a general, very simplified sense, that's kind of how these rocks can record the direction of Earth's ancient magnetic field. But wait, hold up. You might be wondering now, does this mean that Earth's magnetic field and the poles have moved over time? Yeah, apparently so. I know, how cool is that? So Earth's magnetic field is generated by the movement of molten iron in the outer core, and the magnetic poles wander over time, and this is aptly named polar wander. Sometimes the magnetic field even flips, and north becomes south and south becomes north. And this is what it means when geologists say that a rock has reversed polarity. It just means that it formed when the magnetic north pole was actually near the south pole. Okay, so all of that's super cool and all, but what does this tell us about the ancient positions of the continents? Well, because Earth's magnetic field lines are predictable at different latitudes, pointing straight down at the poles and horizontally at the equator, geoscientists can tell what latitude a rock was at when it formed. So by analyzing the paleomagnetic signatures of rocks from many different locations across the globe and many different times across the geologic timescale, we can reconstruct the motion of continents through time. And you might have heard all of that, and now you wonder, so does this data indicate the movement of the magnetic North Pole or the movement of continents? Well, it turns out the magnetic North Pole does move a little bit through time, and we call this true polar wonder. But most of the motion seen in paleomagnetism data is due to the continents moving, not necessarily the pole itself, which is why we call it apparent polar wonder. And this is what this new study was analyzing. These researchers used new paleomagnetic data from rocks in the North China Craton to refine the breakup history of Nuna. What's the North China Craton? Well, it's just one of the continental components, or cratons, that came together to make Nuna and a whole bunch of other supercontinents throughout Earth's history. The other cratons that were around at the time of Nuna include Laurentia, which is now North America, Baltica, now Europe, Siberia, now Russia, Australia, now, you guessed it, Australia, India, yes, that one's also pretty self-explanatory, Kalahari, now Africa, Amazonia, now South America, and the South China Craton, now Southern China. And when I say what they are now, it's not an exact, it's an approximation. This is approximately what they represent now. But on this North China Craton, the focus of this study, they sampled 32 different mafic dikes, essentially just ancient chutes of magma that cut through older crust. And because these are igneous rocks and because they're mafic, they include a lot of great iron minerals for paleomagnetic data, and they also make it easy to date them, to figure out what age they are and whether they were during that time of Nuna breakup, and it turns out they were. Using uranium-lead dating, the authors nailed down the age of these dikes to around 1,235.6 million years ago, or 1.2356 billion years ago. I just love putting it in those terms because it really shows you how precise our dating methods have become, especially uranium and lead. And they compared their new paleomagnetic data from these dikes in the North China Craton to existing paleomagnetic data from other cratons like Laurentia, Baltica, and Australia. They looked specifically at the apparent polar wander paths of each of these cratons, and what they found is that they all moved differently over time, indicating that Nuna likely broke up in stages over a period of nearly 200 million years. They identified 3 major phases. The first, initial breakup, occurred around 1.38 billion years ago, when East Nuna, which included Australia and the North China Craton, started to break away from the core of Nuna, which included Laurentia, Baltica, and Siberia. And this is based on the diverging paths, the apparent polar wonder paths of these cratons at this time, and the appearance of large igneous provinces that suggest the plates were pulling apart. The second phase was marked by separation within East Nuna around 1.32 billion years ago. So East Nuna, Australia, and the North China Craton began to break apart, also coinciding with large igneous provinces on each craton. And the third phase was the final breakup of the core around 1.26 to 1.22 billion years ago, when Baltica finally detached from Laurentia and Siberia, the last remnants of Nuna. So this study shows that Nuna didn't just break up all at once, like maybe you might break up with a toxic partner, but rather it was a slow drifting apart piece by piece, maybe like you drift apart slowly from old friends that you've moved away from. Okay, that's a horrible analogy. Anyway, it was a stepwise breakup. It wasn't all at once. And why does this matter? Well, it means that plate tectonics were alive and well during the Mesoproterozoic, or boring billion time, which, believe it or not, is still a highly debated topic. I actually have a lot of videos on the various interpretations of the history of plate tectonics on Earth, so I will link them below if you are interested. These findings are also super important because it shows that Nuna was part of the supercontinent cycle, a driving force behind Earth's long-term evolution. That's very important for us to understand because it also helps us predict the next supercontinent and what it might look like, how it might affect climate and life. And if you want to hear more about predictions about what the next supercontinent might look like and whether it may cause a mass extinction or not, you can check out a video I made all about that up here, and I'll see you guys there. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.